Welcome back. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and prepare for a story you won't forget. Some roads are not dangerous because of what happens on them, but because of what waits there after midnight. The woman who never cast a shadow. There are places in India where the locals don't fear wild animals or criminals. They fear the road itself. Not because of accidents, not because it's haunted in the way horror movies try to convince you, but because people who travel it after midnight sometimes come back. Different. I didn't believe any of those stories until October of 2025. At the time, I worked as a maintenance engineer for a telecommunications company based in Hyderabad. Most of my job involved traveling to remote villages whenever communication towers stopped working. Usually it was routine. A few hours of repairs, some paperwork. Then I'd drive back before sunset. But one Friday afternoon, just as I was getting ready to leave the office, my supervisor stopped me. One last assignment. I remember laughing. That's what you said 3 assignments ago. He smiled awkwardly. It's urgent. A communication tower near a small village called Malapur had gone offline. No signal, no emergency backup. Nothing. Normally another team would have handled it the next morning, but the tower also served several nearby villages. Waiting until Saturday wasn't an option. I checked the location. Nearly 4 hours away. Most of the drive was on highways. The last stretch, not so much. You'll be back tonight, my supervisor said. I hope. Those words stayed with me much longer than they should have. I left Hyderabad around 5 in the evening. Traffic was heavier than usual. By the time I reached the outskirts of the city, the sun had already started sinking below the horizon. The highway was beautiful. Open fields, orange skies, small roadside tea stalls every few kilometers. For a while, everything felt peaceful. Around 8:30, I stopped for dinner at a roadside dhaba. The owner was an elderly man wearing a white kurta and thick glasses. He asked where I was headed. Near Malapur. The smile disappeared from his face. There are many villages named Malapur. I showed him the location on my phone. He stared at the screen for several seconds, then quietly pushed the phone back toward me. You should stay here tonight, I laughed. I still have work. He didn't laugh back. Finish it tomorrow. My company won't like that. They'll like it more than attending your funeral. For a moment, I wondered if he was joking. His expression never changed. Before I left, he handed me a small packet wrapped in red cloth. Keep this in your vehicle. What is it? Holy ash. I don't really... He interrupted me. You don't have to believe. Just don't throw it away. I thanked him mostly to be polite. The packet ended up sitting on my dashboard. I forgot about it within minutes. The paved highway eventually narrowed into a cracked 2-lane road. Streetlights disappeared. Phone signal dropped to 1 bar. Then, nothing. My navigation froze. The map simply stopped updating. I pulled over and restarted my phone. Still nothing. Luckily, I had memorized most of the route. Just keep following the road until reaching the village. Simple. At least, that's what I thought. About 30 minutes later, I noticed something strange. I had driven past the same abandoned bus stop twice. At first, I assumed there were 2 identical shelters. Then I noticed the broken advertisement hanging from one side. Same tier, same faded paint, same bent metal bench. I slowed the car. No, I checked the odometer. I'd driven nearly 6 kilometers. There was no possible way to circle back, not on a straight road. A cold feeling settled into my stomach. I kept driving. 5 minutes later, the bus stop appeared again. This time I didn't stop. I pressed harder on the accelerator. The trees along both sides of the road became thicker. The headlights barely reached beyond them. Everything outside the beam looked impossibly black, almost solid. Then my radio turned on by itself. Static. Nothing but static. I reached to switch it off. Before my hand touched the button, someone whispered through the speakers. Ravi, my name. Soft. Barely audible. I froze. Another whisper. Closer this time. Ravi, I slammed the radio off. Silence. My heartbeat echoed louder than the engine. I told myself it had to be interference. Someone else's transmission. Anything. Then I noticed something in the rearview mirror. A woman. Standing in the middle of the road behind my car. She wore a plain white sari. Her hair covered most of her face. She wasn't waving. She wasn't moving. She simply stood there, watching. I hit the brakes. Hard. The tires screamed across the pavement. I looked back through the rear window. There was no one there. When I checked the mirror again, she was gone. I told myself I was tired. I'd been driving for hours. My eyes were playing tricks on me. That explanation lasted less than 2 minutes, because the smell came next. Jasmine flowers, fresh, strong. The inside of my vehicle suddenly smelled like someone had filled it with garlands. I looked toward the passenger seat. It was empty, but the seat belt, it was slowly pulling itself tight, as though someone had just buckled in. I stared at it, unable to breathe. Then, 3 soft knocks from the outside of the passenger window. Knock, knock, knock. I turned my head. There she was, standing inches from the glass, still hiding her face behind her hair, still wearing the white sari. But this time, I noticed something that made every hair on my body stand up. She wasn't casting a shadow, even under my headlights. The woman never moved. She didn't blink. She didn't tap on the glass again. She simply stood there, close enough that I could see the edge of her sari fluttering in the wind, though the trees around us were completely still. My hands tightened around the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I wanted to look away. Every instinct told me to. But something about her made it impossible. Then she slowly raised one hand. Not to wave, not to knock. She pointed toward the road ahead. Her finger remained perfectly still, almost as if she wanted me to keep driving. I swallowed hard. When I looked back at the road for just a second and turned toward the window again, she was gone. There wasn't a single footprint in the dust beside the road. Only darkness. I didn't wait to think. I slammed the accelerator. The engine roared, and the car shot forward. For nearly 10 minutes, I drove without checking the mirrors. I didn't care if another truck was behind me. I didn't care if I was speeding. I only wanted lights. People. Anything that reminded me I was still in the real world. Finally, a dim orange glow appeared ahead. At first, I thought it was another vehicle. Then I realized it was a row of oil lamps. They lined both sides of a narrow entrance leading into a village. A weathered stone arch stood above the road. The faded lettering read, "Malapur relief washed over me." The nightmare was over, or so I believed. The village looked strangely quiet. It wasn't abandoned. I could see houses, motorcycles, fresh laundry hanging outside, but not a single person was on the streets. Even the stray dogs lay silently beneath porches, watching my car pass without barking. The silence felt unnatural, almost rehearsed. At the center of the village stood a small grocery shop with one dim light still burning. An old man was closing the shutters. I parked beside the shop and stepped out. The smell of jasmine was gone. The air felt normal again. "Excuse me," I called. "I'm here to repair the communication tower." The old man looked at me, then at my car. His eyes widened. "Did you drive here alone?" "Yes." "What time did you enter the village?" I checked my watch. "About 12:20. His face lost all color. Without another word, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me inside the shop. He slammed the wooden door shut, then slid 2 heavy iron bars across it. "What are you doing?" Instead of answering, he walked to every window and covered them with thick cloth. Only then did he speak. "Did anyone stop you on the road?" I hesitated. "There was a woman." The old man's shoulders sagged. "Asking for a ride?" "No." "Calling your name?" My heartbeat quickened. "How did you know that?" He ignored the question. "Did you answer her?" "No." "Did you open the window?" "No." He closed his eyes. He said for several long seconds, he simply stood there, whispering something under his breath. When he opened them again, they were filled with something I hadn't expected. Not fear. Pity. "You were lucky." The old man's name was Narasimha. He had lived in Malapur for over 70 years. He poured me a cup of hot tea with trembling hands. "You shouldn't be here after midnight." I didn't have a choice. Everyone thinks that. I told him about the woman, the bus stop, the whispers through the radio, the seatbelt tightening by itself. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "She always begins that way." "Who is she?" "No one knows her real name anymore." He reached beneath the counter and placed a small brass oil lamp between us. "The elders called her the woman without a shadow. They say she died on that road generations ago. Others say she was never human." I forced a nervous laugh. "So this is just a local ghost story?" His expression didn't change. 3 engineers, 2 truck drivers, a police officer. All disappeared in the last 15 years. They all drove that road after midnight. A chill ran through me. If that's true, why doesn't anyone close the road? They tried. It never stays closed. The room fell silent. Outside, the wind began to whistle through the narrow streets. Narasima suddenly stood up. He looked at the clock. It is 12:47 a.m. His face tightened. Listen carefully. What? From now until sunrise. He lowered his voice. No matter what you hear, do not answer anyone. What do you mean? If someone knocks, ignore it. If someone cries, ignore it. If someone calls your name, pretend you never heard it. Even if the voice belongs to someone you love, even if it sounds like me. He leaned closer. And if someone asks you to open a door, he stopped speaking. What happens if I do? For the first time that night, the old man looked genuinely terrified. Then it won't be me who walks inside. A loud knock echoed through the shop. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Narasima didn't move. Neither did I. Another knock. This time louder. Then a woman's voice drifted through the wooden door. Soft, calm, almost gentle. Grandfather? I know you're awake? Narasima squeezed his eyes shut. The voice continued. Please open the door. I've been walking for so long. My mouth went dry. The old man whispered without looking at me. Whatever happens, don't speak. The woman outside laughed quietly. Then she spoke my name. Ravi? I know you're inside. Silence. A few seconds later, someone began knocking on the back door instead. At the exact same time. 3 knocks. Front. 3 knocks. Back. Then another voice joined in. This one belonged to a little boy. Crying. Grandpa, please. I'm scared. Narasima's eyes filled with tears. But he never moved. He whispered only 4 words. They always learn. The crying outside suddenly stopped. The silence that followed was even worse. Because now, something was walking across the roof, slowly, bare feet. 1 step, then another, circling directly above our heads. And then it stopped, exactly over where I was sitting. A single strand of black hair slipped through a crack in the wooden ceiling and gently brushed the back of my hand. The strand of hair rested across the back of my hand. It was cold. Not wet, not dirty, just impossibly cold. Every instinct screamed at me to brush it away, but Narasima shook his head ever so slightly. Don't move. The hair slowly slid back through the crack in the ceiling. The footsteps resumed. 1, 2, 3, then complete silence. Neither of us spoke for nearly 5 minutes. Finally, a rooster crowed somewhere in the distance. Narasima let out the breath he'd been holding. It's leaving. I looked at the clock. 3:58 a.m. It stays until dawn? It stays until someone lets it in. When the first rays of sunlight reached the village, everything changed. Children ran through the streets laughing. Women swept the front of their houses. Motorcycles buzzed to life. It was as though the terror of the night had never existed. If I hadn't lived through it, I would have believed it was all a nightmare. Narasima handed me breakfast and pointed toward a hill beyond the village. The communication tower is there. I'll come with you. You don't have to. I know, but I do. The hill overlooked miles of farmland. Halfway up stood an old stone temple. It was much older than the village itself. Its walls were cracked. Roots from a massive banyan tree wrapped around the structure like giant fingers. Something immediately caught my attention. There was no bell. Every Hindu temple I'd ever visited had at least one bell hanging near the entrance. This one had only an empty iron hook swaying gently in the breeze. What happened to it? I asked. Narasima didn't answer right away. It rang by itself, so they removed it. The communication tower stood another few hundred meters uphill. Its backup generator had failed after a lightning strike. A routine repair. Exactly the kind of work I'd done dozens of times before. Within an hour, the equipment was running again. Signal returned. My phone exploded with missed calls and delayed messages. One voicemail from my supervisor stood out. Ravi, call me as soon as you get this. I called immediately. He answered on the first ring. Where the hell have you been? I lost signal. For 20 hours? I laughed nervously. What are you talking about? I left Hyderabad yesterday evening. There was a long silence. Ravi, you left 3 days ago. I stopped breathing. What? We filed a missing persons report yesterday. My legs suddenly felt weak. I checked my phone again. The date on the screen froze my blood. 3 days had passed. Not 1, 3. I need to leave. I packed my tools as quickly as I could. Narasima watched without speaking. You already know. What? She doesn't always take people. Sometimes. He looked toward the old temple. She takes time. We hurried back toward the village. As we passed the temple, I noticed someone standing inside. A little girl, maybe 8 years old. She wore a bright yellow dress. She smiled and waved. Is she from the village? Narasimha stopped walking. His voice became unusually sharp. Don't wave back. The girl smiled wider. Uncle? Her voice echoed strangely. Can you help me? She pointed toward the dark interior of the temple. My mother is inside. I looked at Narasimha. He was pale. Keep walking. The girl's smile disappeared. You can't even help a child. I took one step toward the entrance. Narasimha grabbed my arm with surprising strength. No. The little girl's face began to change. Her eyes became darker, far darker than seemed possible. Then her shadow stayed perfectly still. Even though she moved, a second later, she was gone. What was that? Narasimha didn't slow down. It learns what you trust. Last night, it came as a lonely woman. Today, it came as a child. What exactly is it? He looked back toward the temple. Our grandparents believed it wasn't a ghost. It was something older, something that never had a body. It borrows faces. That afternoon, several villagers gathered beneath the banyan tree. When they heard what had happened, no one seemed surprised. Instead, they asked me a question, one after another. Did it ever touch you? No. Did you speak to it? No. Did you invite it? No. They all looked relieved. Then an elderly woman stepped forward. She stared directly into my eyes. Then why is it still following you? The entire crowd fell silent. A cold breeze passed through the square. I frowned. What do you mean? Instead of answering, she slowly pointed toward the ground behind me. My heart pounded. I turned. The afternoon sun was directly overhead. The villagers all had short, dark shadows stretching beneath them. Narasimha had one. I had one. But there was another. A second shadow, standing directly behind mine. Its outline was unmistakable. Long hair, a woman in a sari. No one was there, only the shadow. And when I took one step forward, my shadow moved with me. The other one didn't. It remained exactly where it was, watching. That night, despite every warning, Ravi makes a decision that no one in Malapur has survived before. He returns to the old temple to uncover who or what the woman without a shadow really is. I spent the entire evening staring at the second shadow. No matter where I stood, it remained. If I moved left, it stayed behind me. If I turned around, it disappeared. If I looked away, I could feel it watching. The villagers refused to come near me after sunset, not because they hated me, because they were afraid. Afraid that whatever was following me would notice them too. Only Narasimha stayed. He sat outside the small guest room where I had been given a place to sleep, holding an old brass lamp. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, I asked the question that had been haunting me. How do I get rid of it? Narasimha looked at the flame. You don't. The answer was so simple that it scared me more than anything else. What do you mean? People always think ghosts are like animals. That if you run far enough, they stop chasing. He shook his head. Some things don't follow you because they want to catch you. They follow you because they want to be remembered. That night, Narasimha told me the story of Malapur. A story that most people in the village refused to speak about. Almost 100 years ago, before there were roads or electricity, Malapur was a much smaller village. At the edge of the village lived a young woman named Anjali. She was known for two things, her kindness and her strange ability to predict when someone was about to die. The villagers believed she had a gift. Others believed she practiced forbidden rituals. But everyone agreed on one thing. Anjali was different. One year, during a terrible drought, many villagers left to search for work in other regions. Only a few families remained. Among them was Anjali. One night, a group of travelers arrived at the village. They were exhausted, hungry, lost. Anjali offered them food and shelter. The next morning, the travelers were gone. But something terrible had happened. 3 villagers had died in their sleep. No wounds, no signs of struggle, just gone. The village blamed Anjali. They believed she had brought something evil into their homes. They dragged her to the old temple beneath the banyan tree, and there they left her, alone, in the darkness, for 3 days. When they finally returned, Anjali was dead, but her body was not found, only her white sari and the broken temple bell. Now that doesn't explain the woman on the road, I said. Narasimha nodded, because the story didn't end there. After Anjali disappeared, people began hearing strange things. A woman crying near the road. A voice calling from empty fields. Someone knocking on doors after midnight. The villagers thought it was her spirit, until one old priest discovered something. She wasn't haunting the village. She was protecting it. I stared at him. Protecting it? Narasima nodded. The travelers who came that night. They weren't ordinary travelers. They carried something with them. Something that wanted to enter the village. And Anjali stopped it. Then why does it attack people? Narasima looked at me sadly. Because people misunderstood her. For decades, everyone feared her. They called her a monster. They forgot she was the one who saved them. The wind outside became stronger. The old wooden window shook. Narasima lowered his voice. She doesn't take everyone. Only those who answer her call. Only those who invite her inside. My stomach tightened, but I didn't answer. No, he looked directly at me, but something changed. What? You saw her face. I froze. I didn't. You saw enough. That night I couldn't sleep. The second shadow was gone, but somehow that felt worse. At exactly 2:13 a.m., I heard footsteps outside, slow, dragging, coming closer. I sat upright. Every muscle in my body became tense. The footsteps stopped outside my door, silence. Then, a woman's voice. Ravi. My blood turned cold. I didn't answer. Ravi. The voice was gentle, almost sad. I know you are awake. I closed my eyes. I remembered Narasima's warning, don't respond, don't open the door, no matter what. Then the voice changed. It became older, weaker. Pain filled every word. Please, I only need you to listen. The door handle moved, slowly, once, twice, then stopped. A few seconds passed. Then came a whisper. Not from outside, from inside the room, right beside my ear. Why did you leave me there? I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My eyes slowly opened. The room was empty, but the mirror across from my bed wasn't. In the reflection, standing behind me, was the woman in the white sari. Her face was still hidden by her hair, but this time, she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at something behind herself, something standing in the corner of the room, something even she seemed afraid of. The woman slowly lifted her hand, not toward me, toward the darkness behind her. And for the first time, I heard her speak a name. Not mine, not Narasima's. A name that made the entire village wake up screaming. Rudra? The mirror cracked, the lights went out, and something in the corner of my room opened its eyes. The darkness lasted only a few seconds. But those few seconds felt endless. I could hear my own breathing, the sound of the wind outside, the wooden walls of the room creaking under the pressure of the night, and then a sound that I still remember clearly. A low, wet breathing. Not from the woman in the mirror, from the corner of the room. Something was there. Something I couldn't see. Something that even the woman without a shadow feared. The lights flickered back on. The mirror was still cracked, but the reflection had changed. The woman was gone. The corner of the room was empty. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then I noticed something. The door. It was open. I knew I had locked it. I knew because I had checked it at least 5 times before going to sleep. But now, it was slowly moving, opening wider. A cold breeze entered the room. And with it, the smell of jasmine. I ran. I didn't grab my phone. I didn't grab my bag. I didn't even put on my shoes. I just ran toward Narasima's room. I found him already awake, sitting outside, holding the brass lamp, as if he had been waiting. You saw it. It wasn't a question. I nodded. The thing in the corner. Narasima's face changed. For the first time since I met him, he looked terrified. It found you. What is it? He looked toward the old temple. The reason Anjali died. Before sunrise, Narasima gathered the village elders. No one complained. No one questioned him, because everyone already knew. Something had changed. The old woman who had seen my second shadow arrived carrying a wooden box. She placed it on the ground. Inside were old documents, newspaper clippings, and a faded photograph. She handed it to me. The picture showed a group of villagers standing in front of the temple. Behind them was Anjali, a young woman wearing a white sari. My hands trembled. She looks normal? The old woman nodded. Because she was. I looked closer. Behind Anjali was another figure, a dark shape, almost invisible, standing too close. Its face was blurred, but its hand rested on her shoulder. Who is that? No one answered. Finally, Narasima spoke. That is what came with the travelers. The villagers believed that long before Malapur existed, there was an ancient ritual performed in that area. Not a religious ritual, something older, a way to call something from the space between life and death. The ritual failed, but whatever they called never left. For generations, it remained beneath the land, waiting, feeding on fear, feeding on invitations. And then, one night, travelers accidentally disturbed the place where it was buried. They thought they found an old temple. They didn't know they had opened a door. Anjali discovered the truth, Narasimha said. She spent her life keeping it away. But when people blamed her, they helped it. Why me? Everyone looked at me. No one spoke, until the old woman answered, "Because it thinks you are the next keeper." I laughed, a nervous, desperate laugh. "I'm an engineer. I fix communication towers. I don't fight spirits." Narasimha looked at me. "You already did." "What?" "You ignored it. You survived the road. You entered the village. You saw what most people never see." He paused. "And now it knows your name." That afternoon, we went to the old temple, not because we wanted to, because there was no other choice. The villagers believed the only way to end what was happening was to return to where it began. The temple looked different in daylight, less frightening, but somehow more dangerous. The massive banyan tree covered most of the building. Its roots pushed through the stone walls. Inside the temple was a small room beneath the floor, a hidden chamber. The elders had sealed it decades ago. Narasimha held a rusted key. "My grandfather sealed this place. Why open it now?" He looked at me. "Because it already opened." The door beneath the temple led underground. The air became colder with every step. The walls were covered with old symbols. Some had been scratched away. Others looked burned. At the center of the chamber was an empty stone platform, and beside it, a broken brass bell, the same bell from the story. I stepped closer. The moment I touched it, every lamp in the chamber went out. Darkness. Then a whisper. Not from behind us, not from above, from beneath the floor. "Anjali." The ground shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then another voice answered. A woman's voice, full of sadness. "I know." The lamps returned, and she was standing there, the woman without a shadow. But this time, I saw her clearly. She wasn't terrifying. She looked exhausted, broken. Her eyes were filled with centuries of pain. She looked at me, then at Narasimha, and whispered, "He is not the one you should fear." The temple walls began to crack. A deep sound came from below, like something waking after 100 years. The woman's expression changed. Fear. Real fear. "The door is open." The ground split. A black hand slowly reached through the stone floor. Long fingers, no skin, no bones, just darkness. And then a voice came from beneath us. A voice that sounded like thousands of people speaking at once. Finally, I have a name again. The woman without a shadow stepped between us and the darkness. For the first time, she wasn't hunting me. She was protecting me. But then she turned and looked directly into my eyes. "Ravi, when it takes my shadow, it will take yours next." The black hand remained frozen beneath the broken stone floor. No one moved. No one breathed. Even the air inside the chamber felt trapped. The thing beneath us had finally awakened, and somehow, the most frightening part wasn't its appearance. It was the fact that the woman without a shadow was afraid. For the first time, I understood something. All those nights, all those stories, all those disappearances. The woman on the road was never the monster. She was the warning. The darkness beneath the floor slowly pulled itself upward. The shape was impossible to understand. It had no clear body, no face, no eyes. But everywhere I looked, I felt like something was looking back. Narasimha grabbed my shoulder. "Do not listen to it." "What? It doesn't speak to your ears." He looked at me. "It speaks to your memories." A voice entered my mind. Not through sound, through thoughts. "You were always alone, Ravi." I froze, because it was true. Not completely, but enough. I remembered every night I worked late, every birthday I missed, every phone call I ignored because I was too busy. People leave you, people forget you, but I never will. The voice became softer, almost comforting. "I can give you everything you lost." I saw images, my childhood home, my parents smiling, old friends I hadn't spoken to in years, a life without loneliness, a life where nothing ever disappeared. For a moment, I wanted to believe it. Then I heard another voice, "Ravi." The woman? Anjali? Her voice was weak, but real. "Do not trust something that only remembers what hurts you." The illusion broke. The chamber returned. The creature beneath the temple moved closer. Anjali stepped forward. "You have no name." The darkness laughed. The sound shook the walls. I have had thousands. Fear, grief, regret, loneliness. Humans give me new names every generation. Anjali lowered her head. But you were never meant to stay here. The darkness grew larger, and you were never meant to survive. I looked at Narasimha. What do we do? He pointed toward the broken bell. The bell. I stared at it. The bell? Anjali used it to trap the darkness, but the bell broke because she was alone. He looked at me. She needs someone to finish what she started. I understood immediately. No. Everyone went silent because they knew what I was thinking. If I ring it, well, what happens? Narasimha didn't answer. He didn't need to. I already knew. The thing needed a keeper. Someone to hold the door closed. Someone to replace Anjali. The darkness moved closer. The floor cracked beneath my feet. Anjali looked at me. For the first time, she smiled. Not a scary smile, a grateful one. I am sorry. I shook my head. For what? For making you afraid of me. The words hit harder than I expected, because suddenly I remembered the first night, the woman standing in the road. The woman everyone feared. She had never tried to hurt me. She had pointed toward the village. She had tried to lead me away from something worse. I picked up the broken bell. It was heavier than it looked. The moment my fingers touched it, my second shadow appeared again. But this time, it was not behind me. It stood beside me. The creature screamed. The sound shook the entire temple. No. The darkness rushed forward. Anjali grabbed my hand. Her fingers were cold, but steady. Now. I lifted the bell and struck it. The sound was impossible. It wasn't loud. It was deep, like the entire earth had answered. Every crack in the temple began glowing. The roots of the banyan tree moved, wrapping around the chamber, holding the darkness back. The creature screamed. The villagers outside heard the bell. Even though the bell had been silent for nearly a century, the darkness tried one final time. It showed me everything I feared. Failure, loss, regret, a life where everyone I loved disappeared. And then, it showed me myself, standing alone forever. I almost dropped the bell, almost. Then I remembered something. A shadow only exists because there is light. Darkness cannot create a shadow, only steal one. And I was done letting it take anything else. I struck the bell again. The chamber exploded with light. The darkness collapsed. The creature beneath the temple disappeared. Not destroyed, not killed. Just gone, as if it had never existed. When I opened my eyes, the temple was silent. The bell was broken. But the door beneath the earth was closed. Anjali stood beside me. But something was different. For the first time, she had a shadow. A small one. Faint, but real. She looked down at it, then smiled. I can finally leave. I wanted to ask where she would go, but I already knew. Some spirits don't stay because they are trapped. Some stay because they are protecting something. The next morning, the villagers found the temple restored. The broken walls remained, but the strange darkness was gone. The road outside Malapur became normal again. People traveled after midnight. Cars stopped disappearing. The whispers ended, and the woman in the white sari was never seen again. I returned to Hyderabad 2 days later. My company had 1,000 questions. I gave them simple answers. A damaged tower, a communication failure, a delayed repair. I never told anyone what happened. Who would believe me? 6 months passed. I thought about Malapur less and less. Life returned to normal, until one night, I was driving home after work. It was raining. The road was empty. My headlights reflected against the wet pavement. Then my radio turned on. Static. I reached to turn it off. Before I touched the button, a voice whispered, "Ravi." I froze. The same voice, the same sadness, but this time, it wasn't calling me. It was warning me. Don't look behind you. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. I wanted to ignore it. I wanted to believe it was impossible. But then, I saw something in the rearview mirror. A person standing in the middle of the road, wearing a white sari, watching. But this time, she had a shadow. And beside her, another shadow stood. Something else. Something waiting. I never drove that road again. I never returned to Malapur. But sometimes, late at night, when the house is completely silent, I hear 3 knocks at my door. Knock, knock, knock. I never answer. Because I learned something from Anjali. Not every spirit that knocks wants to enter. Sometimes, they are trying to make sure something else doesn't get out. If you enjoyed this story and found it interesting, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more spine-chilling tales. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye, and see you in the next story.